Hello. It should be. Good. Can you hear me? Is it on? Oh. Doesn't sound like it's on.
No, it's not. Is it?
Hello. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. Finally got used to hearing myself in the background. You know how it sounds funny without hearing yourself in the background. But we're going to go back to the book of Numbers. What do you know about the book of Numbers? A lot of numbers. A lot of numbers. What did they number?
Themselves.
They numbered themselves. They numbered the people. Let's get a timeline together here. When? A lot of times I think we have trouble understanding the Bible and what it's talking about because we don't know when the events are happening. We don't know who's talking to who, what event it's in, the chronological order. I think there needs to be classes on that, especially for new Christians. You know, the basic timeline of the Bible, what's happening, things like that. Because it gets hard if you try to study on your own and not have that timeline down. So where are we right now in the book of Numbers? Where have we gotten to? We know the location. Well, at the beginning. Yeah, we're looking at Sinai. We're at Sinai. How long they been there? Around a year or so. The tabernacle was basically opened on day 1 of month 1 of year 2 out of Egypt. The second year out of Egypt. I believe that's correct. Day 1, month 1, year 2 is when the tabernacle was, you hate to say opened for business, but that was when things began rolling with the tabernacle. They'd been gone a year out of Egypt. 1 year from the day they left. In that time, they had been there, of course, because Moses went up and down and got plans for the tabernacle, got the law, got the 10 Commandments, all those things, and he had been, expounding on that for a while. It took a while to build. It wasn't just a overnight thing. They built everything. They had to mold. They dealt with, many rebellions. They dealt with all kinds of things in that year. Well, here we're starting year 2. And God has given them the plan for movement. This is how I want you to camp. This is how I want you to move when the Spirit or when the Shekinah glory lifts off of the tabernacle and begins to move. I want this group to pack up this group to pack up this group to pack up this, and this tribe to head out first, and on and on and on and so forth. And they knew how to move. It was a well-oiled machine. When they got ready to go, they were up and they were gone. And God said, all right, it's time, or moved, it's time to go to the promised land. How long were they in the wilderness? 40 years, 39 years. Was that the plan? Was that God's plan? No. Okay, so we get this hard concept. It's just like creation. Why would God create Adam and Eve, knowing they would sin, but telling them not to? We get into this questioning mode, and you have to just grasp the fact it was not the plan for them to sin. God gave them the choice. And we're going to find something else in this tonight. Why did something happen? Why would God do this if He knew the outcome would be bad? Why did it happen that way? So that's what we're going to take a look at. Starting in verse 13, or chapter 13. Yeah. Oh.
I think it kind of goes along with what you said this morning about punishment, about prayer, that when the spies were sent out for 40 days,
Yep.
They come back, and only Caleb and Joshua gave the good report, and the other 10, and the camp basically said, no, we're not going to do it because of that. Those 40 days were represented by those 40 years.
40 years. And we're gonna. That's exactly what we're going to take a look at here in just a minute. It's kind of one of those things where you read something later on in the Bible and you go, "Whoa, I got to go back and reread this. What did I just get out of this?" So that's what I want you to walk away with something tonight. I don't know if you knew, and I didn't until I reread through this and started doing the studying on it and going back and looking in actually another book. But we're getting ready to leave. We're headed to Kadesh Barnea. It's on the border of the Promised Land. God said, this is it. We're getting ready to go in. Guys, my promise is finally coming true. 400 years after Israel came down into Egypt, we're getting ready to go in. Be ready. Okay, so this is what he says. In chapter 13, verse 1, we are at Kadesh Barnea. How far is it from Mount Sinai? You might know? 11 days journey. It took them a little more than 11 days because, of course, you had a rebellion in there. You had, in between the leaving and the getting there, Miriam, she got a fit on her, and things happened, and she was outside the camp for a little while, and so you get man involved, and they start messing some things up. God said it takes 11 days. If you just do what I said, it'd take you 11 days to get there. So 11 days walking, 2 million people. Can you imagine standing up on the mountains and seeing that? And just looking out over those valleys and seeing all those people move through there as fluidly as they did. It was a well-oiled machine. There wasn't a lot of dilly-dallying. And
it's like those pictures you see of them crossing the Jordan, just a few people. No, we're talking, 2 million people.
That river backed up about 15 miles. Yeah. And they walked across on dry land. 15 miles. So all the way up to about the city of Adam. Is that what it said? Yeah. I think it was the city of Adam. Okay, so here we go. We're getting ready. Yeah.
Think about 15 miles. That's from here to Danville.
Yeah.
You put it in relationship to what we're talking about.
And you're looking in not a stream, a river. A river. And the Lord spoke, chapter 13, verse 1, and the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, send now men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I have given unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a ruler among them. Now what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to read a lot. We're going to read a lot. If something strikes you, say, hey, let's talk about that in just a second. I'll stop every so often. There's some things I want to point out, and this is one of them. Who did God select? A man from every tribe. Why? Why didn't he just pick 12 of his favorite men? Why didn't he just pick 12 men that would say, let's go? What was the point of getting one from every tribe? Representation, the entire, in a way, you now have accountability on the entire nation as a whole. This was a leader from inside each and every tribe, all 12 tribes. So no one can say, well, that was the one that didn't want to go or did want to go or whatever. No decisions being made unless it's by the entire community as a whole. Verse 3, and Moses, by the commandment of the Lord, sent them from the wilderness of Paran, and all the men who were heads of the children of Israel. And these were their names. We're not going to go through their names. Y'all can read those, on your own. We'll go down to verse 17. This is what Moses tells them. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said unto them, get up this way into the Negev, that lower desert region. And you're looking at, when we think about this, I don't want you to think they just crossed over and looked at they spread out over this it would be huge to them, this area. I don't know if they all stayed together. I'm not sure if they split up, but they spread out because you can read in the description of the geography that they had to have. You got these desert area down here. There's mountains in and around there, but it is not fertile. It's brown. It's when you went to Masada, right? You look out, and it's the area around the Dead Sea. That area right there is not exactly what you would call lush farmland. But you go on up. They go on up into the land of Canaan, and they begin to see all these things. And go up into the mountain and see the land. What is it? And the people that dwell there, are they weak, or are they strong? Are they few, or are they many? And what the land is that they dwell in, whether it is good or bad, and what cities they are there, they dwell in, whether in camps or in strongholds, meaning what? Whether in camps or in strongholds. Do they live in just little villages, or do they live in walled cities? What do they live in? Tell us how they're living. And what the land is, whether it is fat or lean, whether there is wood therein or not. And be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Bring us something back to show us. Give us a little enticement to go back in. Where are we at here? Verse 20. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and searched from the land of the wilderness of Zin to Rehob, as men came to Hamath. And they ascended by the Negev, came unto Hebron, and all these other places. And we'll go on down to verse 26. So they're going out and they're looking. They're looking. Do you think... Put yourself in Moses' shoes just a minute. What do you think he feels when he's writing this? Disappointed. Imagine if you had to recount the entire story of your life. Now, granted, this is not the entire story of his life, but, God said, write it down. Would there not be some things you would be, do I have to write that? Do I have to include that?
If they had just went in.
If they'd have just went in. Why didn't they?
They chose to listen to the 10 report of the bad spies. The bad report of the 10 spies.
Okay.
And if they would have done that, they could have went, God was with them. He'd have destroyed their enemies just like he did with Joshua. If they just went in right then.
Right then. That's all they had to do. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that just a little more. But imagine Moses writing this. There was a little bit of regret. Do you think while this was happening, he anticipated the bad reports? If he did, what do you think would have happened? If he had anticipated they were going to come back with bad reports, what do you think he would have done? Maybe not sent those spies in. Maybe if he'd have been more familiar with the people, maybe, I don't know. Can you imagine looking back at what Moses must have been thinking, putting this to paper? We'll see. We'll see what you think here in just a few minutes. And verse 26, verse 25, and they returned from searching the land after 40 days. That's a long time. That's a long time to be away from home, out scouting the land, probably staying hidden. You're probably not being very, social with the people. Hey, how you doing? You're probably hiding, running through the woods, around mountains, all these other things. You got to put the real life to it, and they were hiding. So they come back, and they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. You read in verse 23 that, one cluster of grapes they had to hold between two men. I don't know if that's big grapes or just a big cluster. I'm guessing it's just a big cluster, but can you imagine if the grapes were this big around? You had like 12 grapes on it and they would carry. But it was a land flowing with milk and honey. We say that as almost as an exaggeration today. Well, it just means it was a fruitful land. No, there were massive beehives in this land. It literally was flowing with milk and honey. God didn't just choose those words to describe some nice place. It was very productive as far as the land goes. And they told him, verse 27, we came into the land which you sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, never mind that. Never mind all the good stuff that's there. The people are strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. Uh-oh. Sounds like something out of a movie. We saw the children of Anak. What'd they see?
Giants.
They saw giants. They saw giants. They saw big people. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the edge of the Jordan. They're everywhere. everywhere. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once. Let's go now. We don't even have to prepare. Let's go. God's with us. Let's go and possess it, for we are able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. Was that probably true? Probably true. They had the advantage of walled cities, fortified cities. They knew the territory. They knew the land. It's very hard to fight a war on someone else's home turf. It was very difficult for either the North or the South to fight in the other during the Civil War. Difficult to fight in the areas in and around France and Germany in World War II. It's difficult to invade. You don't have the advantage unless you got God on your side. But probably true from speaking as a human, just without a supernatural God on your side, they probably were stronger. And they brought up an evil report of the land. How could something God promised be evil? They brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched, and unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. Okay, you think there was any exaggeration here? Probably a little bit. All the men are huge. Huge. Can you imagine if you wanted to make a case, a strong case? You would exaggerate just a little bit. And there were giants, the sons of Anak, who came out, who came of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. Now, granted, Goliath was big. He was big, 9 feet tall, a little over 9 feet tall. But do you think we look as grasshoppers to something 9 feet? I think it's a little bit of an exaggeration there. They're trying to make their case. These people didn't, they hadn't necessarily seen who they were talking about. We're like grasshoppers compared to these people. And they sold them. Now, when you start this next chapter, in verse 14, can you imagine the chaos this would cause? You got some saying, let's go, and you have some saying, no, we can't. Can't do it. Can't do it. And you see in verse 14, chapter 1, and all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. What do we do? What's the future hold? Oh no, I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening. This was not part of the plan. And we begin to see that God is fed up. So we'll keep going here. And the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron. That's one of the themes of Numbers. There are all kinds of murmurings and rebellions of small sort from the time they left Egypt all the way up. Rebellions. And the whole congregation said unto them, would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God that we had died in this wilderness? Oh, be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you ask for. And where the Lord has brought us unto this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey, were it not better for us just to go back to Egypt? And they said one to another, let us make a captain and let us return into Egypt. They said, we don't want it's not good enough. What God said is going to happen is not good enough for me. Can you imagine saying that? And don't people say it every day when it comes to Jesus? What God did for me, it isn't good enough. It's not good enough for me. When really it is. It's the only thing that should be for you. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of Israel. And here we have Joshua coming in, Joshua the son of Nun, and Caleb, who were before them, searched the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is a very good land. They're still pleading their case. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Looking at verse 10, they did that, and the congregation demanded to stone them with stones. And the glory of God appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. You talk about a pretty heroic entrance there. They're getting ready to stone them, and here comes God. Just right there in front of everybody. You remember what it said about the mountain? When it glowed, they trembled with fear. No one could even go near it and touch it. Can you imagine God coming down right here? Oh, and the Lord said to Moses, how long will this people provoke me, and how long will it be before they believe me for all the signs which I have shown among them? This is one of the prime things. People will demand signs in life. People will demand to see miracles, see healings, see all these things. But will it produce any faith? No. And if you could argue a little, it would be a short-lived occurrence. These people had come across the Red Sea and were complaining a few days later. They had supernatural breakfast every day, and they were complaining about what it was. They didn't even have to work for it. The sin nature is insatiable. It cannot be contained outside of the help of the Holy Spirit. I mean, they grumbled all the time, and God said, how long are they going to do this? After all I have shown them, after all I have done, how long will they continue? But God's about to get mad. He's about to get fed up, and he's about to say no one more time. So he keeps going, and Moses said, I will smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make thee a greater nation, mightier than they. Moses, I can do it. I can do it. And Moses said, then the Egyptians shall hear it, for thou broughtest your people out of this land. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of the land, for they heard that the Lord are among this people, that the Lord art seen face to face, and the cloud stands over them. Basically, you're going to bring us all the way out here, let us do all these things, see all these things, and then kill them? What's the people of Egypt going to say? They're going to say, look what that God did. I wouldn't want to serve him. So what is the answer here? God says, I don't know any other way to get your attention than to pronounce a curse. If I'm not mistaken, this was about the 10th rebellion at the time that they had. And there's more after this. There's more after this too. This was about the 10th one, and God says, enough is enough is enough. And if we look down unto verse 26, he says, and the Lord spoke unto Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear this evil congregation who murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say to them, as truly as I live, saith the Lord, as ye have spoken in mine ears, so I will do to you. Your carcasses. There is something about that word, carcass. It's kind of it's like the word corpse. It just sounds cold, doesn't it? Your carcasses will fall in this wilderness, all who were numbered among you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, who have murmured against me. That would shake you up a little bit. You think that? Can you imagine the thought? I wonder if some didn't believe it. No way that'll happen. No way. Who's to say? Doubtless you shall not come into the land concerning which I swore to make you dwell therein, except Caleb and Joshua. But your little ones, whom you should be a prey, them I will bring in. You know those people you said will be a prey? Those people that you said the enemy will tear down, guess what? They're the ones that I'm going to take in. Go, Ronnie.
That's the way we are today. You get in trouble when you live by sight and don't live by the Spirit of the Lord. You don't have a holy relationship with the Lord and live spiritually. You just live by what you can see and touch. You get in trouble.
Oh, yeah. I think Moses is going to see something. He's agreed to something, and that's what I'm talking about. A little bit of regret here, quite possibly. Verse 33, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years and bear your harlotries until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of days which you search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year shall you bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and you shall know my breach of promise. I, the Lord, have said, I will surely do it against this evil congregation. And he did. We know the story from here on. The book of Numbers is about 38 years. You don't hear a whole lot in those 38 years. You know, they moved when God said move, and they stayed when God said stay, and they could have stayed in places for years at a time. Some places maybe a few days. We just don't have a whole lot of record of that. We know from this account. What do we know from this account, what we've read so far? God said what? Go into the land. What did he command him to do at the beginning? Spy it out. Why? Why? You get that feeling? You ever ask, why did God create all this if he knew we were just going to sin? You know, you ever get people that think that kind of reasoning? If God knew what was going to happen, why would he command them to go? And the Lord spoke unto Moses, chapter 13, verse 1, send your men that they may search the land of Canaan. Why would God send them in knowing they're going to rebel?
It's just like us with salvation. We've got a choice. They get to go in and see what, that's the promise. Are they going to accept it by faith? And the same thing with salvation. You go to witness to somebody, and you tell them the freedom that they can have in Jesus Christ, and present it to them, and they can see it in their heart and their mind. The Holy Spirit draws them, and they are presented with a choice. Same thing with the spies.
They have to be supernaturally aware. I call it spiritually sensitive. You know, they have to get to a point where they know that practicality, God is a God of practicality. He is. But when it comes to Christ and his sacrifice for us, practical's out of it. It's supernatural. Because practical would say, I got to work to be good enough on my own to get in. And God says, no, I take you as you are, as horrid and terrible as you are. I take you, give you the victory, and then we begin to make you better. That's not practical. It doesn't make sense to the carnal man. So we get to this point, and sometimes Moses doesn't explain things until later. And sometimes we can start to fill in what has happened here. You get to a point where you start to see conversations that have probably happened. They weren't recorded, but you have to put the whole picture together. So Moses is going to record, I don't know if he writes it 38 years later, he's going to record an event 38 years later. It's going to happen in the beginning of Deuteronomy, the first chapter of Deuteronomy. And what is the purpose of Deuteronomy? What's the point?
Second giving of the law.
Second giving. You got this group of kids that's under 20, plus Joshua and Caleb, and Moses has got to stand up and repeat it all to them and say, I did this once for your parents' generation, and they rebelled. Now you're getting ready to go in. So I'm going to give you this course on the law. But as is the case a lot of times, when you have some powerful sermons going around, there's often a history given. Anybody remember Stephen's sermon? Remember seeing Stephen's sermon in the book of Acts? He goes through the history. Bam, 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 bam. He gives them a whole history of everything that they've come through as a people. Peter, in the first sermon in the book of Acts, on the birthday of the church, he's talking about David and going all the way back and repeating the history. And Paul said several times, I would remind you of this. I would remind you of this. Moses is going to remind them. He's going to remind them. But he's going to fill in the gaps for us. We're going to find out why God said, send in those 12 spies. It's here. But I tell you, I ask you this. I want you to keep this in mind. Was it part of the plan? These spies, the Bible says, God said, send them in. Now let's figure out why. So in chapter 1 of the book of Deuteronomy, if you're there, these are the words which Moses spoke unto all of Israel on this side of the Jordan, in the wilderness, in Arabah, opposite Suth, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir unto Kadesh Barnea. It came about in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, that Moses spoke unto the children of Israel according unto all the Lord had given him in commandment unto them. And he kind of begins to go through some things here. And I want you to go to, I didn't mark it. I know where I'm going, but I didn't mark it. Oh, no, let's go to 19. And he's given a history of this first go-around. Given a history of this first go-around with the evil generation that said, no, we're not going in. And verse 19, and when we departed from Horeb, which is Sinai, and we arrived through all that great and terrible wilderness, which you saw by way of the mountains of the Amorites, as the Lord our God commanded us, we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said, who's the I? Moses. I said unto you, you are to come unto the mountain of the Amorites, which the Lord our God doth give unto us. Behold, the Lord thy God hath set the land before thee. What? Go up and possess it. And the Lord God of thy fathers hath said unto thee, fear not, neither be discouraged. What do we not have? No spies. No spies. God said, go get it. It is yours. I don't need spies. I know what's there. Now look in the next verse. And you came near unto me, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us, and they shall search out the land and bring us word again by what way we must go up, and into what cities we shall come. And the saying pleased me well, Moses says, and I took 12 men of you, one of a tribe. And it pleased me well. It might have pleased Moses well. Might have. And Moses, being Moses, probably inquired of the Lord about what to do. What do I do here, Lord? And this is what the Lord said. If you're going to do this, make sure it's the whole nation. Make sure it's one from each. That way it is a consensus of the entire population. It is a representation of all of Israel. Not just 12 from Judah, or 12 from Reuben, or 12 from Gad, or 6 from Gad, whatever. One from each. God knows there's going to have to be accountability for what's coming. But God said, go possess it. It is there. Why would God send them in, bring them so close, and then put them in an unsolvable box? Why would he put them in that situation when there was no way out? In fact, God does not do that. He doesn't put you in a situation where there's no way out. He simply said, go possess it. And then who came up with the idea? It was the children of Israel that said, we will go send in spies.
To teach them a lesson. That goes throughout their history. Just like when they went to Samuel and said, we want a king. He
Right.
was a king. And Samuel didn't, that's not what God intended. He was to be the king. But he said, okay, I'll give you the king.
That's what, yep.
And here's what's going to happen when you do. And he gave them what they wanted. And so it's a teaching lesson to say, okay.
It's one of those things that, based on what you've seen, do you think it was originally God's plan? Was it God's plan for them to sin and them to rebel? No, it never is. It's not in His plan for you to sin. People say everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that. And listen why. It is not God's will that a child of God fall away and lead other people astray, that's not God's will. Now, God can take the outcomes of all that and work it together for good, and will for those that love Him. But it is not His will that someone intentionally sin. It is not. It can't be. Otherwise, He would not be God. And it would be impossible to please or satisfy that being if that was the case. This is where God says, I have a sovereign will. Then I have my permissive will. I will let you do this. And like Matthew said, I will show you the lesson out of it. If you had just gone in, we would have solved this 40 years earlier. We would have been 40 years in the land. God didn't bring them there for the sole purpose of them to fail. He brought them in, and had they said, let's go, do you think God would have come up with another reason to say, nah, just kidding, let's wander around out here for 40 more years? Had they said, hey, let's go, God would have took them in right then.
You know, it just kept on going. It wasn't just, you do this one thing, it was daily and yearly, that even with Joshua, after he died,
Yep.
he said, okay, the fight's not over, the campaign's not done, let's just continue going. But they didn't. They compromised. And again, God taught them a lesson. And He told them, He said, because you didn't drive them out,
Right.
they're going to be a thorn to you. You're going to have to put up with this. Even to this day, they're putting up with it. To where they did not totally drive the inhabitants out. They compromised, and they kept some of them and integrated with them and stuff, and they're paying to this day.
And they made the ultimate one when Jesus was on trial. They said, let His blood be on our children and our children's children. Let them pay for it.
You got the other side too. At Mount Sinai, He gave them the law, hoping they would say, we can't do that.
Can't do it.
And they did say they would do it.
So we'll do everything you said.
So that's the opposite side there. It works both ways.
So my thought is, God's got it worked out. And who messes it up? We do. We do. We mess a lot of things up. We, through whatever our thought process are, our selfishness, sinful desires, we mess a lot of things up. And there are things that have probably been put before you in your Christian walk, and we've messed it up. We've messed it up through whatever, fear, selfishness. The list goes on and on and on. Stubbornness. I can do it better. We messed it up. So we really need to be more spiritually sensitive to the fact that when God's moving, let's just let Him move. Let's just let Him do what He's going to do, and let Him use us how we need to be used. Instead of saying, oh, well, why don't I just go this way? It's easier. Makes more sense. But that's not what He says. When opportunities are presented to you, they may be hard. And there may be an easier way you think to do it. And in the end, God is going to accomplish His mission, His plan, in His time. And if you choose not to be a part of it, someone else gets that. Someone else gets that blessing. There's no doubt people that were in that second generation got the rewards and experienced more fully what the other one didn't, simply because they said, nah, I don't think God can handle it.
Thank God for mercy and intercessory prayer. Many times Moses, on Mount Sinai, when they were down there doing what they were doing, he wanted to take care of them then also.
Mm-hmm.
And here at this time, and in our lives, thank God for Jesus Christ, and for He's our intercessor, and thank God for mercy
and grace. Can you imagine being under the law still? It would be bad. Anybody else got anything? That's what I had for you now, to kind of just hitting some high points in the book of Numbers and seeing, some famous, maybe not famous, I don't want to call them famous stories, but, some important points that happened throughout that book, and kind of seeing what we can dive into. Anybody? Nobody? All right, so in honor of dads, I'll have my dad close us out tonight.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day, and thank you for all the many blessings and life that you've given us. We thank most of all, Lord, that you are our Father. We pray, Lord, that you help us to draw closer to you every day and be the kind of Christian you'd have us be. We thank you for loving us the way you do. We ask, Lord, that you forgive us for our sin, forgive us where we fail and come short.